Hello, this is Scribble, here for another game of Revolution, the custom magic format. Today I'm going to be playing against Provocative, who is playing a Aggro looking list, featuring the new 1-mana dork in Huskforger Acolyte, new to Revolution, never had a 1-mana dork before. So there's been a lot of spookery going around the format this month, with people being worried about it. Lots of people repping it, and so people have been talking up the importance of running a shock in your list to be able to answer that early. I don't have any of those. I don't need any of those. I've got 3-mana sweepers. That will definitely kill my opponent's creatures before they pump out of range of my sweepers. Yep, absolutely. So yeah, featuring a bunch of ways of cheating creatures into play with the Revolt at the Palace and Foreign Encounter, as well as kind of Coco likes. So I'll be playing a Jeskai battle control list. So now let us get into the match. Alrighty, and we're in. Provocative has started out strong with rolling at 20. So I assume they're going to be going first. Yep, taking the play. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got 3 lands, no red mana, bits. We've got ramp that needs red mana. We've got removal that needs red mana. We've got a sweeper. This hand would look really nice if I had red mana. And if I top deck red mana, it will look pretty sweet, ramping up to my sweeper. But that seems pretty risky. I am generally one to take quite risky keeps instead of mulliganing. It takes me quite a bit to actually mulligan, but given my opponent is on a pretty fast deck, I think I need to toss this. It's just not my day for getting my colors. Alright, we've got red this time, we don't have blue. Alright, I think it's probably better. I can actually cast my Deafening Clarion. We'll be pitching Clash at Mistrit Vale if I'm keeping this hand, with the double blue and the no blue hand. Yep, alright, let's keep this. Pitching Clash. Cannot currently cast Thistral Charm, but at least that's only 1 land off of being able to be cast. So good luck to my opponent. Is this the famed, yep, turn 1 Huskforger Acolyte? Have I already lost? We'll have to see. Alright, okay, there is my missing blue land. So I think, given Windbeaten Stones can come into play untapped, let's start out by cracking Silent Lakefront and getting an island. Given I'm not casting anything turn 1 anyway, may as well use my forced tap land this turn. So I can Thistral Charm something turn 2 if I'm worried that things might be getting out of range of Deafening Clarion. Alright, so what do we got here? A Foreign Encounter. Yep, okay. Well, that puts +1/+1 counter on the thing that it fetches into play, so relatively likely that that's going to end up out of range of Thistral Charm. Ooh, oh no. We're hearing a youch from my opponent. I wonder if that means that they have missed entirely. Or no? Okay, alright. So no 3 drops. They still got a 2-drop. So they didn't miss completely, and they do get a counter on it, so it will survive Deafening Clarion. So opponent gonna have a look for something with an activated ability. That's a fun bit of flavor in their deck, is that they've got a bunch of creatures that have activated abilities as well, so they can hit them with Contest Coordinator, but, ooh man, it's not looking good for them. It looks like they've whiffed. Okay, so we've got, alright, electronic countermeasures is nice to see. That can get the things that get out of range of Deafening Clarion and Thistral Charm. So let's quickly pop over and have a look at my opponent's deck, just to determine whether or not I should use removal on Huskforger Acolyte this turn. So they'll be at 4 mana next turn. So they don't have any 4 mana cards. Currently, yeah, everything pretty much dies to 3 damage, unless they get it out using Foreign Encounter. Yeah, everything will die. Though we do have, for example, Redeemer of Hollowed Flesh and Fabricated Anomaly, which can get creatures to above 3 toughness. So because of those cards, I think it's better off for me to hold on to the Thistral Charm to potentially flash it in to kill one of those creatures on my opponent's turn, rather than kill the Acolyte this turn. So let's just play the mountain, rather than play the wind-beaten stones untapped and forecast that I have something to cast on my opponent's turn. This is the advantage of sweeping up the Huskforged Acolyte in the Deafening Clarion as well if I need to. Okay, so here we go. We've got... that is the Fabricated Anomaly. So my opponent will have 2 cards in the graveyard thanks to the puzzle box, so they can pump up the Contest Coordinator. But that is something I can eventually kill with electronic countermeasures, and it's not a very threatening card overall, so I think I'm actually fine with letting this go and not needing to kill it before combat, and then I can just sweep everything up with Deafening Clarion the next turn. Well, everything except for Contest Coordinator. So opponent is using the puzzle box, pitching a Verdant Sanctum. They don't really need to go too much higher in terms of land counts. So that seems like a good start for them. Yep, you can go attack, that's fine. I shall allow it. Yep, okay, swinging in for both. Don't have anything that they can cast for 1 colorless mana. Alright, and goodbye graveyard. Taking 4 damage here. That is fine. Yep, okay. This feels overall manageable. Alright, so let's shock in the wind-beaten stones. So we're at 14 now. Sweep 2 of their creatures, lead them with a 3/5. With only 2 cards in hand, I feel okay at this point. The puzzle box definitely helps them enhance their top decks. So I definitely wouldn't count my opponent out of it yet, but I feel okay at this point. Alrighty, so we've got an Ironback Tyke. Yep. So that'll be searching for a basic land, which presumably they might be puzzle boxing away. No? Okay, they want to be building up the mana. I wonder if that means... I wonder if that means that they are building up to Revolt at the Palace. So that is something to stay aware of. So, what can I do here? I could play Offset Demon just to start plugging away at my opponent's life total and start patching up my own. Or I could save Thistral Charms to counter Revolt at the Palace, since that's a non-creature permanent spell. Since I have 2 of them, I can also kill the Ironback Tyke, which seems like a reasonably good thing to be doing. Yeah, I think that's probably wise. Yeah, I think if my opponent gets a Revolt at the Palace down, I may just lose. So that seems like a good call at this point. So let us pay the 2 life there. This is probably... yeah, this probably forecasts... because I don't have much to do at instant speed in this deck, besides my removal here. I've got a Quench, but that's not super impactful at this point. So my opponent's probably thinking that I will be double spelling this turn, since I think 3 mana is the highest mana value among my instant speed spells. So let's see if they play around it. Yep, you can attack, that's fine. Alrighty, so I will be taking care of the Ironback Tyke. Save me some damage, going down to 6. So, are we seeing the Revolt at the Palace? Okay, we are not in fact seeing a Revolt at the Palace. Okay. Interesting. So, I don't have a sweeper that I would want to catch that up in. So, alright, thinking out my next turns. I think I probably want to get Offset Demon down next turn, just so I can start stabilizing my life total and pushing against the win condition. Otherwise, Contest Coordinator is going to start looking real threatening. So because of that, I think I will Thistral Charm the Reaper of Blossoms as they go to end step, just before they get the trigger. Yeah, given I can't cast Thistral Charm next turn if I'm using Offset Demon. So let's let that resolve. And then if they try to go to end step, I will plug in a response to that. Yep, there we go. So now it is still my opponent's second main phase, so... okay, they could have cast something there if they had something, so I am curious if that means their last card in hand is actually Revolt at the Palace. Okay. So we drew a Silent Lakefront, which is counter magic, but in order to cast that I need to play Wind-Beaten Stones untapped, putting me at 4. Then Contourist Coordinator swings in, leaving me at 1. And then they could very well just not cast it, so I don't have anything to use Lakefront on. So because of that, I think I am just going to... Yeah, I have to just go for the Offset Demon at this point. So let's get that out there. Alrighty, so decisions of where to put the Overflow subroutine. I think I probably want to hedge my bets and put it on Program B. I think it's unlikely they'll be able to remove Offset Demon next turn. So we'll postpone that for a little bit. So let's get in there for the 3. Go up to 9. So which land am I playing here? I've got 2 blue sources. I can definitely use more blue sources, but I don't need them right at this moment, and I think being able to hold up both Silent Lakefront and Electronic Countermeasures is going to be helpful. So here I'm just going to play Wind Beaten Stones tapped. Going shields down for a turn. I won't be too surprised to see Revolt at the Palace here. Okay, my opponent does not have it, so that is nice to see. So I'm just going to say that I'm F6 and let my opponent play out their turn without having to wait for me. For people unaware, F6 is the command on MTG Online where you give full permission for your opponent to do whatever they like, rather than having to wait for you. Okay, so they're swinging in with Context Coordinator, exiled 3 cards to Fabricated Anomaly to give it a +1/+1 counter. So a little bit spooky. Context Coordinator is now out of range of Electronic Countermeasures, and opponent is now filling their graveyard with the puzzle boxes so that they can continue pumping things with Fabricated Anomaly. I can handle Fabricated Anomaly with Electronic Countermeasures, so deal 5 to it, and then because I have a permanent with mana value 4, I can Impulse Draw with a base off the excess damage, so that is nice. Okay, so we've got a second one there. So I think what I'm doing here is... Well, I'm going to need to kill the Fabricated Anomaly, and I'll probably be doing that pre-combat, rather than holding up Silent Lakefront. So if I'm going to be doing that pre-combat anyway, I'm curious if I should just do this as a sorcery. Though, what is it? You can play those cards until your next end step. So actually, no, using that at sorcery speed would mean I can't play something that costs more than 2 mana. So I think I will just use that on my opponent's turn. So let's just, before going to combat, remember to shuffle my program. Alrighty. Swinging for 3. Do I play Silent Lakefront here? I've got 2 expensive removal spells in hand that also dig me to more cards. And the cards I really want to see at this point are on the more expensive end, so I think I actually will play the Silent Lakefront here. And let's just go in and get another island. Alrighty, and let's see how my opponent can capitalize off that. Alright, using 1 puzzle box, getting rid of a melon, defense attorney. Yep, you may draw a card. And now using the second one, you may draw a card again. So I got rid of a Redeemer of Hollowed Flesh before attacks. Yeah, let's just kill the Fabricated Anomaly. Alright, so that is 5 damage. So I'm exiling the top 2. And I don't need to decide at this point. I can choose next turn. Path of Scales is nice to see. That will probably draw me into another land, so I can use 4 mana to cast that, and then hold up 3 mana for countermeasures as well. So let's take our 4 here. Alright, there's a foreign encounter. Yep, that is fine. I actually have a removal spell that can answer something that has a +1/+1 counter up this time. Alright, here we see an Ironback Tyke, so opponent is going to get another basic land off that, giving them some more fodder to pitch to puzzle boxes for some potentially more helpful cards. Yep, and then plays it out. Okay, not need to hold on to it. So opponent's on 6 lands now. Curious if they're trying to build up the mana to flip Ironback Tyke. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay, interesting. So nothing else I can use my remaining 2 mana on, so let's just tick over. Shigane Mana Burns is nice to see. So flipping over our program, nothing to return with Overflow. I'm pretty sure I haven't milled any. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so I could play Path of Scales here, but if I do that, and if I don't flip an untapped land off it, then I won't be able to cast a removal spell from my hand. I might get one off Path of Scales, but that's taking a bit of a gamble. And actually, no 2-mana spell that I would be able to get off of it would actually deal with my opponent's creatures here. What else can I do? If I play Path of Scales for 4 mana and then swing into it with Offset Demon, then my opponent's creatures have 1 fewer power each, so there'll be 6 damage total, and I'll have 7 life. Though Ironback Tyke is able to transform this turn, or will be on my opponent's turn, so they will be able to swing in for lethal anyway. So I think rather than using Path of Scales, I probably need to just kill the Tyke with the exiled electronic countermeasures. Okay, so if I do that, I'm losing 1 life each turn overall to the Contest Coordinator, and I can kill my opponent in 4 turns with Offset Demon. So if I can do this and also play Shigane Mana Burns this turn, then that will line up with the 2 damage, the Chapter 3, which will be able to kill my opponent in 3 turns with Offset Demon rather than 4. Which, assuming I can answer whatever else my opponent plays, the math there lines up to me, I think. So yeah, I think in that point, in that case, I'm just going to go for the safe play of countermeasures here. Making sure, what mana do I want to hold up? Let's say, yeah, I don't think it super matters, so let's just use this now. Path of Scales is gone. Killing the Ironback Tyke and exiling the top card. Okay, that is a Shigane Mana Burns. Okay. I think I can tap out for that rather than hold up electronic countermeasures. I think I probably need to be honest. Need to push the advantage. So let's just cast that now. Treasure also probably not going to be something that I can use rather than the land. So not too unhappy to see that. Alrighty, we are filtering away again with Puzzle Box. So if my opponent gets another Fabricated Anomaly, that will change the clock for them. I'll be losing net 2 life per turn. Looks like they didn't get one of those though, so let's just take the 4, go to 3. Alrighty, we got a Contest Coordinator. So yep, you can have that. That is something that I can kill with countermeasures. So notably, they can't get Fabricated Anomaly off of Contest Coordinator, even though the anomaly makes a permanent that does have an activated ability. Alright, that's another Ironback Tyke. Okay. But it looks like my opponent can't actually cast that with their current mana situation, given they've only got 1 white source. Alrighty. So, switching back over. That is another Offset Demon, so I don't hate saying that. Does that change the math at all? So we're adding a counter there. Adding a counter to Shigane Mana Burns. So I'm going to think about whether or not I want to use this Chapter 2. So I can play another Offset Demon with 4 of my mana, set my opponent to 1, set myself to 9, and then I'll have 3 mana left over to be able to use electronic countermeasures, so that's nice. Does the backside of Ironback Tyke have haste? I forget. No, it does not. Okay. So my opponent will be able to do... They've got 5 damage, but I do have countermeasures, so that does seem good. At this point, the second Shigane Mana Burns is not going to be helpful, so I am just going to pitch it here. Let's exile the top 2. Interesting. Okay. Does this change anything? Do I need the third one? I don't think my opponent really has removal for my demons, so... Or at least if they do, it would be burn, and they would probably rather point that at face. That's actually worth thinking about, because my opponent does have terminal impact. So actually, if they draw that, I think I'm actually dead. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 7 mana all up, so I can't play double Offset Demon. So this will put me to 9 life currently. Yeah, okay. I don't think I can play around terminal impact at this point. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, they've got 6 damage. It is kind of wild they haven't found one yet, actually, with their 2 puzzle boxes. Is there a world where I take the land, electronic countermeasures the contest coordinator to try and find something that helps me survive it? No, because in that case I'd only be getting 3 life, and they can kill me just based off their lands. They don't actually need their creature. So in that case, yeah, let's just take the Gilded Court here. Exile the Offset Demon. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, let's play the other one. Make another Overflow, and I don't assume the game is going to go much longer, so it doesn't really matter where I put it. So let's swing in with both of these. Opponent goes to 1. And holding my breath. Last turn of life, they say. Alrighty, yep. We're spinning the wheels. Are we going to find a terminal impact? Interestingly, they might be playing around my Quench. So, if I don't kill their creature here, and I go to 4... 1, 2, 3, 4... well, in that case, Quench doesn't actually help me, because they can hold up 2 mana for it. So in that case, yeah, okay. Alright, well, let's just let them go for it. Yeah, at this point, this is my opponent's last turn of life, so they are not going to play around any bluffs, so I don't actually gain anything from using electronic countermeasures. I mean, I don't really think it super matters either way how I go about this. Either they have it in their hand or they don't. Okay, we're tapping out for 6 mana. Oh, what am I thinking? I completely forgot about the this spell can't be countered part of this. Yeah, no, I that's it. Can't dig it into anything with electronic countermeasures. Yeah, no, my opponent's got it. GG. Yeah, okay. There was, yeah, nothing to be gained from bluffing the Quench, because that spell can't be countered. I can definitely read. Alrighty, so let's have a think about what we want here. So, I don't really have sideboard options for this matchup, because I kind of built the main board to skew towards beating creature decks, so most of my creature removal is in my main board. What is actually interesting here? Asterion can gain me a bunch of life, and that... it actually looks like a pretty good blocker, I think, against my opponent's creatures, given a lot of them go above 3 toughness. Though, if I'm playing Asterion, that makes my Clash at Hearthcrosses kind of worse, so I'm not sure if I want that. Swift Approach, yeah, I'm not sure I love that either. My opponent's going to be emptying out their hand a lot faster than I am, so not particularly efficient. Pest Problem is not good here either. What's my opponent got in the sideboard? I could see them bringing in Looming Cyhawk because I have a lot of 1/1 token makers. And the rest of their stuff doesn't seem super useful. Swift Approach maybe to deal with my battles, though I think my opponent will actually be better off if they just try and kill me faster rather than messing around with trying to interact with my battles. I could bring in Staff of Balance as an Icy Manipulator and tap their creatures. Is there anything that I would want to take out for that? I don't really think so. Clash at Mistrit Vale is quite slow, but if I get it down early enough, then I get a lot of blockers. I don't think I'm going to be doing any sideboard here. So we'll take the play, and hopefully being on the play makes a difference. Yeah. Well, it looks like this is going to be another mulligan to 6, and my opponent's on the keep of 7 cards, so that's not good to see. Alright, that's slightly better. I've got 2 lands, and Gilded Court can be any color of land, but because I've got my red source as a tap land, it doesn't super help me. Funny enough, I can have Gilded Court gain the Plains type, so that Crucible enters untapped, but then my turn 2 is just red and white mana. I still can't cast anything like that. So, yeah. Well, I can't imagine a 5-card hand being any better than this, so let's just go for it. Yeah, I think... yeah, it makes more sense to play the Gilded Court, gain the Plains type, rather than having Crucible be my turn 1 tap land, because that way I at least have more colours of mana moving forward. Are we seeing another turn 1 Acolyte? Yes, we are. I'm understanding why everyone wants to be running Shocks these days. Alrighty, so we're gaining the Plains type. Yeah, alright. Another blue card that I can't cast. So let's play the Crucible, which enters untapped now because of my Plains type, and then we can gain the Island type this turn. I'm not representing anything in instant speed because all of my 2 mana instant speed spells require blue mana. Okay, Redeemer of Hollowed Flesh. Yep, that one hurts, but nothing I can do about that. So, I don't have any cards in my graveyard for my opponent to exile. So, this means that they are putting a +1/+1 counter on Redeemer of Hollowed Flesh. Yep, good to move to combat. So, that is now outside the range of Deafening Clarion and Thistle Charm, so I'm going to have to electronic countermeasures that. Which means I really want to see a land, an untapped land at that, even more than I already did. So let's gain the island type here. Let's see an untapped land. Not exactly. Yeah, okay, it's not a great start, I'll tell you that much. Am I Thistle Charming the Acolyte, just to try and stem the bleeding a little bit? I would love to catch Acolyte in Deafening Clarion, but that is seeming more and more risky. Though my opponent doesn't have any 4-drops in their deck, so Acolyte on the next turn isn't super impactful, so I think I actually just get more out of holding the mana up for a potential Death Deflection instead. So that's what I'm going to do here. Yep, we're moving to combat again. So going to gain another +1/+1 counter. So that leaves me with about 1 turn to deal with this Redeemer. It will still die to Clash at Orth Cross, but it is not looking like I'm getting there with my draws so far. So let's take the 6. See what my opponent plays. Okay, that is a Melon Defense Attorney. Yep, that resolves. Can't counter that, because my only counter for creatures is Death Deflection. So what do I do here? Obviously I would rather catch these in a Deafening Clarion, and I do need to kill Redeemer next turn. So I'm banking on... Alright, I'm going to play as though I am definitely drawing an untapped land next turn. So given that, does Thistle Charm help me if I use it on either of these? Given I can't use Deafening Clarion next turn, I believe so. Though, actually, if I do cast a spell this turn, then I do have a card in my graveyard. Though, Redeemer only checks to see if I exiled a creature or a land. So even if I exile a non-creature spell, they will still get a +1/+1 counter. So that doesn't help me. So in that case, I think I need to Thistle Charm the Huskforger Acolyte, because next turn, if my opponent plays an untapped land, then they can use the mana from Acolyte to play their 5 mana Revolt of the Palace. So, alrighty, we're definitely seeing an untapped land. Cockatrice, I don't think you heard me. I said we're definitely drawing an untapped land. Yeah, no, that looks like that is going to be game. I'll still play it out anyway. Shigane Meta Burns gets me a treasure, so it is kind of a land in that regard, and it lets me filter towards more lands moving forward, but not loving my chances here. Alrighty. Yep, we're exiling Thistle. You're getting a counter going to 6. Curious if my opponent doesn't attack with Melon this turn, to leave it up to give it hexproof from red instead. So let's take the 6 damage here. And there's an Ironback Tyke. Yeah, okay, so in this situation, I can Deafening Clarion, leave myself at 1 HP to the next Redeemer attack. So let's... Alrighty, take that. Okay, so another lack of a land. So Shigane Meta Burns, I can pitch to try and dig for a land. So in order to avoid pumping Redeemer, I would need to discard a creature or a land. I do have Offset Demon here, so I can pitch that to prevent it from going. That would mean they get a 1/1 token though, which might be better for them, or at least it's harder to deal with if I'm assuming I'm using Deafening Clarion this turn. So many choices. Yeah. Not sure it super matters either way, but I think it's unlikely I'm going to end up... Do I? What are we going? Using this 3 mana for Deafening Clarion. Trying to play a land. Can't play anything off the land this turn. Killing Melon and Ironback Tyke with Deafening Clarion, taking at least 6 from Redeemer. What does my next turn look like? I will have 4 lands maximum, so cannot play Clash. I could play Offset Demon, but I will still lose to Redeemer. I don't think I have anything that answers that at that point. Yeah, okay. Well, let's just pitch the Offset Demon. Well, we found a land, eventually. Ooh, okay, actually, because this is an untapped land, I don't need to sacrifice the treasure for Deafening Clarion, which means I can possibly cast Clash at Orthcross next turn if I top deck another untapped land. So, that is something. That was the out that I needed. I still need a little bit more from my deck if I want to stay in this, but got to play around my outs at this point. Alrighty, opponent's at 5 mana, so we could see a Revolt at the Palace here. I don't think they have anything that would prevent me from at least delaying them if I do manage to use Clash at Orthcross next turn. So as long as I do get an untapped land, it should buy me at least one turn. Yep, so good to move to combat. What am I exiling? So if I exile Offset Demon, they get a 1/1 and I go to 2. Either way, I'm killing everything with Clash, but this way I stay at 2 life instead of 1. That's probably worthwhile. So you can have your measly little 1/1. Silly green decks with their tiny little 1/1s, and definitely no creature stronger than that. Alright, let's swing to 2. Holding on for dear life. There we go. Yeah, can't do anything about that. Oh well, you hate to see it, but very well played to my opponent. A really well-built deck, very powerful. Takes really good advantage of the new Huskforge Acolyte, not only with their mass of 3-mana creatures, but also just generally having a lot of things that they can spend a lot of their mana on. Terminal Impact is a really good inclusion at this point, both because it takes advantage of Huskforge Acolyte really well by being both early game removal and a late game mana sink, but it also kills opposing Huskforge Acolytes really well as well, being one of the only actually good on curve, or at least on rate ways of trading for it. And now that I'm seeing it in action, I should probably also be on Terminal Impact instead of some of my burn, as a way of both handling the early Huskforge Acolytes my opponents have, but also being late game top end as well. A way of finishing the game. But yeah, really powerful showing for that card and several cards in my opponent's deck and my opponent's gameplay overall. Thanks Provocative for the games. Really enjoyable, even with the 0-2 loss. You know, it felt reasonably tight, like it could have gone either way. So yeah, really enjoyable. Thanks for the games and thank you for tuning in. And I will see you later.